I used to believe that poverty was the scourge of the galaxy. I now know that pain is the real enemy. Pain is a plague that preys on both the rich and poor. Kaeon Rhyse. Welcome, humble adventurers, to my realm of knowledge and mystery. Here in my cursed library are endless tomes and scrolls on the darkest and evilest foes in all the realms. Be they from Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, the many worlds of darkness, or any realm in between. Welcome to the Dastardly decimal system. I'm your caretaker of the corrupt, the librarian, Castor Cain. Pain is a powerful motivator. Countless villains have started along their path of darkness due to some sort of pain. For some, it was the pain of losing a loved one. For others, it is a physical pain, endlessly assaulting them, from which they need relief. Pain is a constant in our world, motivating the good and the bad in all of us. For today's topic, I have brewed a pot of deep space tea. This is a vanilla Earl Grey tea blend featuring oranges and elderberries. Its rich and moody flavor is perfect for any spacefaring adventurer. So take a seat as we talk about the corporate villain known as Kaeon Rhyse. Kaeon Rhyse is a Vertani technomancer. The Vertani are a humanoid spacefaring species that stands 8 feet tall, have delicate features, gangly limbs, and mouse-like eyes that are pure black in color. As a species, they can change the pigment of their skin at will, often changing colors and patterns based upon their current mood. Kaeon is a gorgeous man who is often seen in a gray or black suit, with his hair in perfect order. Not a thread or strand is ever out of place. Yet beneath that perfect exterior is a damaged body. His fascination with pain has left his chest and back covered with cuts and scars, as he is often hiring people to cut and hurt him over and over, turning each gram of pain into a kilogram of euphoric pleasure. Kaeon wields a semi-automatic pistol that he shoots with frightening accuracy. He also wields a switchblade, carries several grenades, and calls upon his vast array of technomancer skills to cast numerous spells. Ones like Overload System, Rewire Flesh, Mirror Image, Resistant Armor, and Haste, just to name a few. There exists a world known as Golarion. This was a land of sword and sorcery, and filled with the meddling gods and fiends. While most of the planet's history is still being written, its future has already been set by the fates. In the far future, Golarion is no more. In a time known as the Gap, where even the long-living elves have had their memory wiped, the planet vanished. In its place was a massive space station known only as Absalom Station. Nobody knows what happened to the planet. The gods say that it was moved for safety, but some think that not even they know the truth. In the Lorekeeper community, this future of magic and technology is known as Starfinder. In the Pact Worlds, there is a planet known as Rhyse. This is a tidally locked world, meaning one half of the planet is perpetually facing the sun, while the remainder forever sits in darkness. A ring running around the dividing line, known as the Ring of Nations, hold many of the planet's countries. One of these countries is known as Vimmel, the capital city of which is Kuvakara. This is the home of Kaeon Rhyse. Kaeon was born in the Shades, the poor part of Kuvakara. He grew up in an impoverished family, and because of that, he was always forced to work twice as hard to get half as far. Luckily, he had a brilliant mind. As a child, he honed his naturally gifted mind with hours of study. He was always at the top of his class in school. By his teen years, Kaeon had gotten a part-time job at a computer and cybernetics repair shop. In no time, word of his skill got out. Suddenly, students were asking him to repair their school laptops and tablets. He used the money to support his family. He continued his advancements into programming, often developing small apps with him and his friends. Despite his skill and genius, Kaeon's life was riddled with difficulty and pain, for no other reason than he was born poor. He watched his family struggle, sometimes going days without food. He watched gangs and violence assault his streets, taking the lives of those he cared about and grew up with. He also watched as the homeless filled the streets, ignored and forgotten because they were poor. Pain was a defining and unavoidable part of his life. When Kaeon graduated school, he was awarded an internship with Eclipse Innovation, one of the leading tech companies of the world. He combated the ageist and classist prejudice leveled against him by using his sharp mind and innovative approach to technology, earning him not only a full-time job, but several promotions in a very short period of time. Kaeon was a rising star, and everybody knew it. In his personal time, Kaeon did everything he could to aid struggling families. He gave half of his generous salary to charities, even forming his own whose purpose was to bring technology to the impoverished Kuvakara students. All this changed, however, after a visit to New Elysium. "15 years ago, Eclipse Innovation purchased asteroid D334H. This enormous rock had been mined dry years prior, but the company saw potential in it. They used it first as a laboratory for the creation of military technology. They hired Dr. Lestana Gragant to head the facility. Yet when a magical explosion destroyed the facility and killed Dr. Gragant, the operation was shut down. The asteroid was retooled and rebuilt as a pleasure resort. 15 years after its initial purchase, D334H was renamed New Elysium. Kaeon was invited to New Elysium, but he initially turned it down. To him, spending money on himself and luxuries was a waste. He could be funneling that money back into his home, doing his best to better the streets. It took the insistence of other board members for him to finally cave. They assured him that self-care was not selfishness. This turned out to be a mistake. Unknown to almost everybody, Dr. Gragant had not died. She was still alive in the shadow plane. She had been corrupted and transformed into a fiend without empathy or compassion. While stuck in the shadow plane, she still had the ability to reach across the realms, and she used this to begin slowly reaching into Kaeon's mind and corrupting him. She expertly twisted and mutilated his mind, molding him into a loyal, devout servant. When Kaeon left New Elysium, he was a changed man. Gone were his personal goals and philanthropic endeavors. Now, there was only the desires of Dr. Gragant. Kaeon spent the next year bringing Eclipse employees and executives to New Elysium, allowing them to be corrupted as well, until Dr. Gragant had a loyal group of servants. That was when the experiments began. Kaeon began using many employees to be his test subjects for horrific cybernetic experiments. He used the data from that to spearhead a new project. As the head of software development, he began Project Penumbra, the social media solution. This social media app had one purpose, and that was to strengthen Dr. Gragant's corruption, so her message could be spread across the galaxy. And all of this started on New Elysium. The first version of the app was known as the Keys to Elysium. This app was a virtual concierge that was at the beck and call of all of New Elysium's celebrity guests. The app would open every door, book every service, and be used to order each and every drink and meal. If a guest wanted the full New Elysium experience, they would be bound to the app. The alpha test was successful, infecting several influencers, celebrity adventurers, and even an entire sports team with her madness. Manifestations began to occur in people's minds. Some would wake up and find a new eyeball in their throat, unnervingly staring at them through the mirror's reflection, only for it to vanish a moment later. Others would suddenly notice a crack in the bulkhead's glass. The more they stared at it, the bigger it would grow until it shattered, and the vacuum of space violently pulled them outwards, assaulting their lungs with damage as they struggled to breathe. Just as they were about to be ejected, reality returned. The glass was intact, the crack wasn't real, but the damage was. There were even reports of others who found themselves invited to the room of a sexy, stunning woman for carnal pleasure, only for her body, in the middle of sex, to morph into a rotting husk of flesh before vanishing entirely. These phantasms continued, leaving all of the guests agitated, injured, and becoming more desperate with each passing day. Some had signs of weight loss, paleness, darkening eyes, and lethargy. Others had self-inflicted wounds. As the corruption grew, so did the message hidden in the app. Pain is inescapable. The only way to conquer it was to change their perception of it. If pain was really pleasure, then they would have no pain at all. If every cut was pleasure, then pain was a good thing. And if pain was a good thing, then pain needed to be spread to others. These were the same words that had converted Kaeon. His childhood had been so filled with pain that he thought himself a slave to it. Dr. Gregant had given him another option. A way to free himself from the shackles of suffering. A way to turn pain into pleasure. The more that the message assaulted the guest's mind, the more aggravated they became, until they snapped. Those fully under Dr. Gregant's corruption became violent and chaotic, and Kaeon just watched in glee. The alpha test ended when a group of adventurers shut down the Keys to Elysium. But that was no great loss. Kaeon had his invaluable data. Now it was time to put it to use. Now it was time to share Dr. Gregant's message to the entire galaxy. Now it was time to launch the Penumbra app. Penumbra launched in Kuvakara like a wild storm. People all across the city eagerly downloaded it. Within hours of launching, their user base was in the millions, and their posts were tenfold. With each vid, tweet, and status update a user posted, Dr. Gregant's message grew fractionally stronger. Kaeon wanted to watch firsthand the chaos that Gregant's shadow signal could cause. He wanted the unjust city that had caused him so much pain to suffer as he had, to feel Gregant's pleasure, but he knew it unwise. Such an indulgence would be foolhardy and dangerous. Instead, he had been building a black site on a tear spot between Rhyse and the Shadow Plane. There he began to recruit beings and monsters from the Shadow Plane. including an assassin known as Avigdus. When the meddling adventurers from New Elysium arrived in Kuvakara, Kaeon was ready for them. He had paid a great amount to be kept informed of their whereabouts and doing. He could not let them destroy the Penumbra servers. He needed to stop the adventurers, and he started by sending out Avigdus to kill them. After numerous failures, Avigdus was eventually slain, but she mattered not to Kaeon. She was but a distraction. The adventurers arrived at the black site and began to move through it. Room after room was filled with traps, horrors, experiments, and vicious shadow monsters. Only at the end did they find him, locked in his office with the controls to a particle accelerator and a pair of corrupted bodyguards by his side. The heroes asked how they could remove the corruption that they carried, but Kaeon just laughed, stating that only Dr. Gargant could do such a thing. When the heroes attacked, Kaeon flipped a switch and activated the accelerator, washing everybody in a wave of planar energy, transporting them all to the shadow plane. In battle, Kaeon was a cunning combatant. He used technology to overload the heroes' grenades, causing them to explode on their waist. He attacked with a semi-automatic pistol and an ultra-thin switchblade. He hid behind mirror images and assaulted with various evocation spells. Kaeon would send his bodyguards in first, using his Heart's Void manifestation to transfer any damage he received to them. Eventually, Kaeon was slayed and the Penumbra servers were destroyed, but not before the heroes learned of the truth. The shadow signal still existed, and it was all due to the actions of Dr. Lestana Gargant. It's so hard watching a good man fall. Not only is it devastating seeing a good man with honorable intentions fall to the darkness, but it also rubs each of us in a dark and frightening way. If the best of us could fall for darkness, what hope did the rest of us have? Did a good person actually exist? Or are we all one step away from being a vile villain? Is good just an illusion or a foolhardy frame of mind? It's existential questions like that that keep me up every night. Well, it seems that our tea has run out. Feel free to stand up and stretch your legs as I brew us up a second pot as we discuss the vile doctor herself. This has been the Dastardly Decimal System, and once again, I am your librarian, Castor Cain. Do you love the Dastardly Decimal System and want to support us? Check out our new Patreon. Members will get access to show notes, official artwork, our new bonus episode series called Cleaning Up After Tea Time, and of course, plenty of cat pics of Vega voice actors, Vash and Zid. You'll even be able to suggest a topic for a future episode. Check it out at patreon.com/Dastardly Decimal System. If you're not financially able and still wish to support us, suggest the show to a D&D loving friend. It really helps us get noticed. The Dastardly Decimal System can be found on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and now Blue Sky at DD System Podcast. That's Delta Delta System Podcast. Drop us a message and say hi. Vega always loves the attention. This podcast was produced by Midnight Reading Audio, a division of Midnight Reading Publishing. The voice of Castor Cain is Larry Gent. Hi. The voice of Vega is provided by my cats, Vash and Zid. Music was Night Watch by Antipodian Writer from Pixabay, licensed under the Creative Commons. Thank you and have a wonderful, wonderful evening.